Farmageddon is here. Injury updates, breakdowns, and predictions coming up next on this crossover of Locked On Kansas State and Locked On the Portal.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal podcast with a crossover edition of Locked On K-State. Going to be talking all things Farmageddon. It's going to be a blast. I am Brian Smith, your host. Going to be joined here in a second by a man who knows just about everything you need to know about K-State to talk all of that. But we're going to be going over the quarterbacks, the depth chart, the injury notes. There's quite a few important things to get to. And eventually, we're going to get to a prediction. So to help me make all of that happen, Christian Raw, hey, man, what's going on? How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? Excited. We are just hours away from Farmageddon and college football finally being back.
It is fun. Like the anticipation for a first game, even though it's just week 0, it's not a full slate, is still cool. And this is a great rivalry that's gone back. I don't even know how far. I'm guessing 100 years or something.
118.
Oh, wow. That's a long time. So it's great. And right now, both programs are quote unquote up. And they have a chance to compete for the Big 12 championship and a chance to get into the college football playoffs. So as they say, let's get it. I'm going to do it this way so everybody out there knows my path. We're going to talk about injuries pretty much throughout the show. There's a couple key guys on both sides for Iowa State and for K-State that we don't think are going to play. And there's a couple others may not or whatever. We'll get into that. Christian will have more details as we go through. But I'm going to ask what Christian thinks of my take. 5 reasons K-State can win or they can lose as well. We got 5 for each. We're just going to go through, and then we'll give a little bit of a backdrop on why. I'll give my own comments. But first one that I have, and I'm going to do the reasons that Kansas State can beat Iowa State first. Number 1, Iowa State's inexperienced wide receivers, especially there. For those that don't know, Iowa State didn't have one. They had 2 guys go in the second round of the draft. Like, they had guys at wide receiver last year. And I'm not picking on Iowa State. They're not going to have that same kind of production at wide receiver. They've only got a couple of starts career from the guys that are currently on the roster at Iowa State that started there. Now, they may have started somewhere else, transfer, whatever. But Rocco Becht, he's a guy I know. He's good, but the chemistry with them, hitting third down plays, hitting shot plays, it's not as likely. Like in his first year starting, Rocco actually completed a higher percentage, but they sacrificed a little bit of that last year to throw deep because they had the guys to go get it, and they killed you with big plays. I think that's going to be gone. Christian, one of the ironic things, Kansas State secondary, you could argue, is their biggest Achilles heel for this game. At least it's on the table. But do you think that's mitigated because Iowa State's in kind of the same boat? It's new against new.
Yeah, that's one of my keys to victory for sure is who wins that battle, the unproven wide receivers or the untested secondary of Kansas State. I think that is going to be one of the key matchups for sure. 167 receptions. That's the magic number that Rocco Becht has to replace with those 2 wide receivers and Higgins and Knoll no longer being there for the entire season. That's how much they had, and plus 2 1,100-yard receivers. Only them in Ohio State did that last year. So it's a big shoes to fill. They brought in some decent wide receivers in the portal, but we'll see if they can do that. And Rocco Becht, his completion percentage was less than 60% last year with Higgins and Knoll. Can he improve that with this new portal class? That'll be exciting. But on the flip side, those cornerbacks, that secondary of Kansas State is going to be a huge question mark initially until they can prove themselves, because Jacob Parrish is now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Marcus Siegel's now at the San Francisco 49ers. You lose some senior veteranship just to graduation as well, with the exception of VJ Payne and Gunnar Maldonado, who's a transfer from Arizona, who hopefully will be on the field. He finally got off the availability report, so it sounds like he's good to go, but he'll probably be limited. With the exception of those 2 players, there's not much Big 12 experience on the secondary as a whole. There's a couple of players like Zayshawn Rich and Donovan McIntosh who look like you're going to get the starts at corner. They kind of had their coming out party in the bowl game against Rutgers. But other than that, we didn't see much from them last season. They were kind of buried towards the bottom of the depth chart or just below where you didn't get enough snaps. Now they're going to be the guys that are getting all of it right away. Week 0 against a Big 12 opponent. No time for a cupcake game against an FCS school. You don't get time to prep for that. You are getting right into the gauntlet to start right away. And I think that's going to be one of the key victories for sure. I completely agree with that first take of yours.
Yeah, it's like impossible. Even the greatest Vegas odds maker, it's done it for 40 years, could look at that and be like, man, I have no idea. First game and completely unproven for the most part. That's tough. Second reason I have for K-State being a likely winner, and I'm not picking on the kid, but if I'm going to have a freshman that plays major minutes, and I don't care which school it is, I do not want it to be an O-line or D-line. In the trenches is harder. For Iowa State, true freshman defensive tackle, Kamari Moore is the backup D tackle. You're going to have to rotate against Kansas State's run-heavy scheme. I know this kid's probably pretty good, or Iowa State wouldn't put him on the 2 deep. That worries me for Iowa State. Do you think that when he comes into the game, Kansas State might adjust a little bit, or is it just going to be business as usual? But I have a hard time thinking he's going to be ready for Kansas State's offensive line.
I think they're going to adjust, maybe not because of the true freshman, but because who he's going to be rotating with. Orange is the all Big 12 defensive lineman.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the best defensive linemen in the country. Probably should be playing in the SEC when you think of defensive lineman. The guy is really good. He is one that is going to be an NFL level talent for sure. But when you talk about switching in from an all Big 12 guy to a true freshman, I think there will be just natural adjustments for sure. But what I've been hearing from Iowa State insiders and from our friend Nick Maravitz at Locked On Cyclones, they really like Moore in fall camp. He's really stepped up and he's truly proven to take that job. It's not just given to him because of his stars or because of whatever the case may be. He has earned that job to be behind Orange on the depth chart. So, hey, that's a big concern that they had last year. I know you can point towards the linebackers being an injured crew last year, but in the Big 12, heading into the Farmageddon game last year, which was the end of the season, November 30th, Iowa State was the best passing defense in all of the Big 12, but they were 15th out of 16 teams in run defense. So when you're talking about can that defensive line and those linebackers stop a guy like Dylan Edwards and the rest of the running backs, of course, Avery Johnson being a dual threat quarterback as well in this conversation, that's going to be a big concern as well. If Iowa State can do that and find a way to shut down the run, well, then you might have a better game, but I'm not very hopeful that Iowa State can get that done for them.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. Like Dylan Edwards is one thing, but the Jackson kid for K-State probably doesn't get enough love. He's a kid that's from my neck of the woods. He played at Ridge Community High School, not that far from Orlando. They don't get any love. They're not a team that makes deep runs, but everybody knew he could run. Like he was a guy. K-State snuck in and got him. That's the kind of guy 25 years ago Bobby Bowden would not have left a rock unturned to get him, but he's no longer there. Kansas State got a steal. That's your second back.
Yeah.
That's
the buzz about the third running back on the roster, Devin Rice, has been everywhere. He's been talked about being a running back. He's been talked about being a wide receiver. His special teams buzz is there. He's one of the names that I was not expecting to hear about so much in fall camp, but coaches can't get his name out of their mouth, and that just means good things as well. So he moved up on the depth chart. I was expecting him to potentially be the 4 or the 5 guy when it came out. He is the solid running back 3, and it sounds like they're utilizing him in different spots. So it sounds like they're going to get creative with this new Matt Wells only offense.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to continue on this crossover edition, Locked on the Portal and Locked on K-State. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who look for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling for your MVP, eyeing a bold shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race, maybe, Or perhaps you've got somebody you really think is going to win it. For me, it's Joe Burrow. Maybe for you, it's Saquon Barkley. Whoever it is, FanDuel lets you make your decision. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you once again for making Locked On the Portal and Locked On K-State your first listens each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Christian Raw joining me here to do the preview of Farmageddon, Kansas State playing Iowa State. All the tractors headed over to Ireland. It's cool for them to do this of all teams. It's so wild. And for those of you on YouTube, if you're looking at my dashboard there, yes, I did put which tractors plow better. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll talk about the offensive lines for both teams. But my next point here is related to that. I think that Avery Johnson will be a problem for Iowa State with his legs, but I need Christian's opinion on this, and you should probably listen to him more than me. He'll know better on this. I had a chance to see Avery Johnson coming out of high school when he was at Elite 11, and he was just a heck of an athlete. He could really run. He could change direction. He could roll left and throw with his right arm. He's a right-handed quarterback. Just naturally gifted in terms of his body. He could have been a baseball player. He could have been a basketball. Whatever he would have concentrated on, he'd been a guy. I think there will be 4 or 5 plays in this game where he is just Mr. Annoying, and he either A, makes the first guy miss, or B, at least falls forward. Those 3rd and 3s, either he stays on his feet and completes a pass or uses his legs to actually pick up the first down. Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And when you got the chance to see him when he was coming out of high school, he was a lot smaller. And although he might have looked quick to you, he was a lot slower than what he is right now. He's put on over 15 pounds of muscle this offseason and got faster. He joined the 23-mile-an-hour club in this past offseason.
Wow.
So not only are you getting a little bit more size and speed from Avery Johnson, which should help with the longevity and his health things that was an issue last year. He wasn't healthy the entire season. You're getting that structure with Matt Wells being the only offensive coordinator in the room. The relationship is super high. There's a structure now. The weapons are a whole different story we can talk about in just a minute, but just looking at Avery Johnson, Matt Wells relationship alone is exciting, knowing that it's year 2 with him as the quarterback, 3rd year in the system, but year 2 of him with the keys after moving on from Will Howard. It's exciting because Matt Wells has shown success in the past, what he can do with quarterbacks that don't even have the type of natural ability that Avery Johnson has. Jordan Love is the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, but if you're comparing Jordan Love's athletic ability to Avery Johnson wins every single time. And Matt Wells was successful with him when he was the head coach at Utah State. He succeeds in the play action, which when you look at all the other weapons that surround Kansas State and Dylan Edwards, Jace Brown, some of these tall wide receivers they brought in, it's a perfect storm for them to be able to utilize that play action, open up some space for Avery Johnson, and 4 to 5 annoying plays, big time key plays that you bring up I might take the over on that for sure. I think he's going to be very explosive in here. I've gone out and made a bold prediction that says he throws for at least 250 in this game and rushes for at least 75.
If he gets 75, Iowa State's in trouble. I would be far more worried about the 75 because a lot of those will be 6-yard scampers on 3rd and 3. That's just my only sub point here. This is just a question for you, Christian. Do you think they will put him in harm's way with designed runs very much, or are they going to try to? I mean, he's a great athlete. You just can't have your quarterback taking hits. Everybody knows the rule. How much do you think they'll do that? I'm curious.
Yeah, he was injured in the middle of the season towards the end against Colorado, but as soon as he started feeling better again towards the end of the season, they went right back to the well. He started running the games again. He started getting out there, and they didn't push away from that. So I think that was one way to kind of get them away from making sure that he wasn't afraid, or that's probably the wrong word, but I think you know what I'm getting at. I don't think they're going to hold him back. If there's an opening or if there's a play that is designed for Avery Johnson to run, or if he has an opening, they're going to let him do what he needs to do. Now, I think they might teach him to run towards the sideline and don't take unnecessary hits. That just seems like the smart take to do. Sure. But overall, I do see multiple designed runs happening on Saturday. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens on the first drive of the game, a designed run for Avery Johnson. Because of him being so dangerous, they have to make sure they utilize him in the run game. It'll only open up Dylan Edwards more on those off tackles. It'll only ensure that you're getting one-on-one matchups for Jace Brown, which we all know that if Avery Johnson finds Jace Brown one-on-one, that's an easy 60-yard touchdown. That happened in Farmageddon last year and multiple times last season. So I think one of the biggest keys for Kansas State's offense this year is to make sure that you utilize Avery Johnson in the run game. It just opens up everything else.
I agree. And my next point, great segue there. I think they'll have at least one big play down the field on a shot play. Do you think it's more than that? Okay.
I mean, I'll agree with you.
They're good, but I don't know if they can handle Jace. That's my guess.
Yes, I mean Jace Brown found a couple big plays last year in Farmageddon when they did have the number one pass defense. That always seems to happen. I've made some bold predictions on my shows this week, and I do think there's going to be some big plays for sure. Now, I think one of the first big plays is it's going to be Dylan Edwards is going to get at least a 50-yard touchdown before halftime. Like that was one of my big bold plays. When people wake up and if they're decide to watch the second half, or they're not watching the game and they're going to social media, the first thing that you're going to pop up is Dylan Edwards running. You're going to have to wonder who they're playing because he's not going to be touched. He's going to get a 50-yard score. I think he's going to have an absolute big game on the ground. But yeah, I think you're going to get a couple big plays from the Kansas State offense, whether it's Jace Brown, Dylan Edwards, maybe Jaron Tibbs. We're not talking about that wide receiver enough, him coming over from Purdue. And although you think, okay, Purdue was so bad last year, just wait. Jaron Tibbs is going to shock the world this year. I think he's going to be one of those wide receivers that is put on the map. I'm not saying he's going to be all Big 12, but I think he's going to be one that easily finds himself in at least a 700-yard reception or receiving yard season when it's all said and done.
He's an important guy because he's a big-bodied player. He's over 210 pounds. You got to have a boundary receiver if you're going to be a team that goes to playoff and does something. You can't just be all smaller players like Jace, and he'll help you in the run game. He'll help you in the screen game blocking. That's an important player. My fifth reason that I think that Kansas State can win, you touched on this as well. You're a prophet here. Impact plays from Edwards. I think he'll have 2 or 3, and let me define impact plays. He'll probably have a long run. Maybe it's a touchdown, maybe it's not. But I also think his ability to catch the football, even when he was at Colorado, like, he's annoying. There's no linebacker going to be with that guy. I saw him live in high school as well. Shot out of a cannon. In some way, shape, or form, it'll be a screen. It'll be an arrow route over the middle or something. He's going to have a crucial play. How much do you think they're going to get Dylan the ball?
Oh, a ton. And it might not be in the traditional route like we saw last year with DJ Giddens, where they just continued to feed him the rock over and over again because they had no choice because he was getting almost 7 yards a carry. I think we're going to see Dylan Edwards get the ball a lot, but I would say less than 50% or just around 50% mark will be a true traditional out of the backfield. I think you're going to see him in the slot. I think you're going to see him in different areas. I think you're going to see him be utilized in very creative ways to make sure you can utilize mismatches. And then obviously because you have a guy like Joe Jackson, who's a little bit more better on the run blocking and can still play very good running back inside the tackles and so on. So I do think they're going to give Dylan Edwards the ball quite a lot. I wouldn't even be shocked or not afraid to say the fact that the offense runs through Dylan Edwards after it gets to Avery Johnson. I think he has to be successful if Kansas State wants to get back to Arlington this season. And not only the offensive side, it looks like he's going to still have a major impact on the special teams. It looks like he's still going to be taking some punt returns and kick returns, at least as of right now. We'll see what happens once the season progresses. But according to the depth chart that came out for week 0 for tomorrow's game, he's going to be taking special team returns, which if you've seen him do that in the past, he's electric.
Yeah, I think that's a good point right there. That's not a normal guy to try and tackle. I said this when I did a show with Alex Dono the other day, talking about the Miami Notre Dame game, and Notre Dame's going to put Ja'Jarian Price and Jeremiah Love back on kickoffs. I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to come on your show and make fun of Miami if they kick him the ball. Either one of those guys the ball. It's the same thing with Dylan Edwards.
I agree.
If you want to use your ego, that's fine, but that's how you get YouTubed for the rest of your life, especially if you lose a 1-score game.
Yeah, ESPN top 10, wide open.
Yeah, it's like if it's you never tell the punter to kick a low line drive, but if it happens, good luck to the Gunners. Like, it's just not realistic. So you've got to choose your battles. When we come back, 5 reasons that Iowa State could beat Kansas State. That is next here on this crossover at Locked on the Portal and Locked on K-State. This show is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. It even has an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers questions, and captures leads, so you'll never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, let's break it down here from the other side of the coin. How could Kansas State suffer a game 1 loss? The #1 thing for me is the easiest one. This is as low-hanging fruit as it gets. You're going against a veteran quarterback in Rocco Becht, who can definitely light it up. If he's just smart, he doesn't get greedy. That's the one thing that he's had to do, probably adjust this. Again, they lost a couple second-round picks to the Houston Texans, a couple of guys. But they're loaded at tight end. They got like 3 guys that have a chance to at least like go to the NFL combine / make a team. You never know. If they use that and they've got 2 good running backs and he makes smart plays and then he's just clutch, I think Rocco Becht can be a reason that K-State comes up short. We talked about it earlier. That secondary, I don't think you'll be able to test them deep quite as much. But if you have a bust in that secondary, Rocco's going to find it. You just can't give any freebies down the field, whether it's tight end, running back, on a wheel route, whatever. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what those wide receivers are going to do for Iowa State because, and I think all eyes are going to be on that as well. And we might get actually sick of hearing the narrative over and over again. Wouldn't be shocked as when you turn on the TV and they start talking about Iowa State's offense. As soon as Rocco Becht gets the field, that's the first conversation they have from the broadcast crew. I do think Higgins and Knoll obviously is a huge void to fill. I don't think you can get past that right away, especially in a week 0 matchup when you're not getting a chance to face an FCS opponent or a non-conference, non-power team to start your season like most power schools do to start your year. I think they'd love to have that, to be honest, just because of all the question marks they have on the offensive side. I've gone back and forth and asked this question. Is Rocco Becht truly a good quarterback, or was his stats and his love in the media overhyped, oversaturated because of the Higgins and Knoll? And I mean that with respect. I don't mean that anything in a shade towards Rocco, but I think that's a valid question, just asking because of such success those wide receivers had last year. And then you look at his completion percentage from last season. I want to see what Rocco Becht can do. If he does find a way to make those new transfers shock the system and find a way to beat out that secondary that, of course, with Kansas State does have some concerns and question marks just being untested, then yeah, this could get ugly fast for Iowa State. They could wind up taking the leads and holding it very good. I do think that their defense is solid. So overall, yeah, Rocco Becht could be the decision maker of this game. There's no doubt about that. I will point this out. I did go back and look at Farmageddon's last game last November. Just in the first half alone, there was about 3 to 4 passes that should have been intercepted from Rocco Becht. They were all just deflected at the line and fell. 2 of those should have been pick sixes. So if they get the better half of the turnover margin, that's a whole completely different story.
Yeah, that's a big deal. This is a pet peeve I have, Christian. If you're a defensive player and the quarterback makes an idiotic decision or the receiver and quarterback on the wrong page, whatever, and it just comes right to you, you have to catch it.
Yeah, my coach has always said that's why you play defense, but it's not good enough for anymore. No. I mean, you must make a big play out of that. Like teams now coach how to block it, everything. Like it's a big deal. You must score or put your team in a great position to do so. The next thing is just an extension of my first point. The tight ends for Iowa State, if they're super annoying in red zone, goal line, and third downs, that can be a problem. They're really good.
I mean, they got
Yeah.
size. They can help you in the run game. They've got experience. That's an advantage for Iowa State. I'm sure Kansas State is well coached and all that, but I'll take Iowa State's tight ends over the linebackers for K-State straight up. I just don't know if they'll be as impactful because they know that and they don't have those receivers out there. So you can cover it differently. So it's iffy. And that's why I didn't say they were going to be as impactful. Like overall, it's just third downs and stuff that they're not going to drop easy ones. They got good players. What's your take?
I don't disagree about they have good tight ends, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer on both sides of the football, might I add, with the tight ends and the linebackers. Iowa State's linebacking core healthy this year. There's some really good players in the matchup and things like that. So excited to see what you can get in the future from that tight end crew.
Next for me, Iowa State's O-line imposes its will. It is massive how big they are. K-State, they've got some pretty good defensive linemen. It's not the deepest unit, or there's hardly any deep units. It puts it in perspective for you. Texas took 5 defensive tackles in the transfer portal. If Texas is needing portal guys, everybody needs defensive tackles. That's kind of how I look at it. But at the same time, Kansas State's defense and their culture and this, Kleiman being the coach and all that, I think they'll at least be respectful against the run first game. Like there's always going to be a little bit of a blip here or there in the first game, but they got 2 good running backs at Iowa State. I don't know which one will have the bigger game. They're a little bit different in style, but Hensen's, he's 220 and he's a plow. Sama, like he's 210, 215. He's pretty athletic. Like those are good players. Now there is the injury. This is the biggest one. The left guard for them may not play or isn't going to play. How does that impact their chemistry? There aren't a lot of guys out that I'm concerned. You can add to any injury report stuff you want when you respond, by the way. But if Iowa State's offensive line isn't really good against K-State, I don't think they got much chance because, again, they lost those 2 receivers. I just don't think they're going to nickel and dime you alone. They need them to be really dominant so they can set up play action to hit a few big plays that they manufacture, for lack of a better phrase. So if they're not rushing for over 150 yards in a quote-unquote traditional sense with their running backs, I think they're in trouble against Kansas State. Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of the trenches for sure. There's no doubt about that. I want to see what happens with I want to see what happens with the defensive line and with the offensive line as well for Iowa State, because when you look at the defensive line for Kansas State and you look at the availability reports, the depth of these players on there is not there. Some of the defensive linemen, some of the defensive edges are going to be out. Ryan Davis, who had a lot of availability on the defensive end side, a lot of love and media days, is not going to be playing this one. And the depth in the defensive tackles behind some of the starters are going to be out as well. So we'll see if is that a good thing for Iowa State's offensive line, who's dealing with their own injuries? That's yet to be determined. The running backs of Iowa State are very undervalued. They don't get talked about enough, but people who watch Farmageddon know all about Sama. Sama always finds a way to be successful against Kansas State. A couple years ago in the snow game, he rushed for over 200 yards. So he is very good against Kansas State. Hensen, I think, will still probably start off and get the majority of the carries. He's probably the true number 1 on the roster. But if Sama surprises and shocks us again, 1, I'll be really upset. But 2, I wouldn't be shocked any way, shape, or form. The running game is my number 1 key factor that I've gone out and spoke about who wins this game. When it's all said and done, whoever wins the rushing game battle, whoever has the most running yards, when it's all said and done, between Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, the Iowa State running backs, Rocco Becht as well, between all of those players, whoever wins that battle will win this game.
That wouldn't be exactly shocking. And that kind of leads into this. The 3-man line and the lack of depth, something you just talked about, was my other concern, because Iowa State could wear on them and they have to commit more guys to the box, and that puts your defense in more of a questionable scenario. And as you've just denoted multiple times during this telecast, look, there's no way around it. Iowa State, as a veteran quarterback, Kansas State has an inexperienced group of defenders in the back end for the most part. You need to be able to run your base defense and hold them to under 4 yards a carry. That's a tough ask against 2 veterans. So that's a little iffy for me, but that's self-explanatory. I'm just going to ask this from a simple standpoint. Would you come in first series of the game and say, screw you, we don't trust that your new receivers can beat us? Or would you play a lot of cloud coverage, cover 3, cover 4, and say, we're going to rally to the football and you got to earn your way down the field 12 play drives?
Coach Kleiman respects the crap out of Matt Campbell, and I think he should, for good reason, because Campbell has owned kind of Kleiman in this series for at least the last couple of years for sure. I think that if you didn't respect the new unproven wide receivers right off the bat, I think that'd be a huge mistake, because we're talking about it over and over again. What are these Iowa State wide receivers going to be like? I'm sure that's becoming bulletin board material for Iowa State, and they're going to want to prove that right off the bat. It would not shock me in the slightest if Rocco Becht did one play action and tried to throw a deep ball 60 yards on the first play of the game just to catch Kansas State off guard. So I don't think that you can look past the wide receivers right away. I think you have to start off in a base defense, which is going to be an interesting what they decide to do on the base defense as well. There's this talk that they want to continue with the 3-3-5, but there was also this consideration that maybe they wanted to push more towards the 4-man front. But because of these depth issues, I don't know if they're going to be able to. So with the fact of Iowa State usually being a pass-heavy team, again, who knows if it's because of those wide receivers last year or if it will continue to be so with Rocco Becht again this season, I think you had to continue being in that base with those 5 in the secondary and hope that those guys in the secondary that are untested can step up to the challenge.
Agreed. Finally, this is the one that I'm not sure about. I haven't studied them as much. You'll know more on this. Jamison Patton, Jeremiah Cooper are a couple good DBs. Do they take away Kansas State's deep ball? Obviously, Avery's got a gun. Yeah. And they've got Jace and some other guys. Just the matchup on the deep ball. They got some pretty good DBs. They got some talent, but are they good enough to do that? I need to see it, and that's why I put it further down my list. But if they win the 50-50 balls down the field, it makes it harder because you got to go 6, 8, 10 plays, and Kansas State, while they understand Iowa State, they play each other every year, they haven't exactly figured out Iowa State's defense, and hardly anybody ever does. It's annoying to play against. You need big plays. So do you think they'll be able to hit some big plays against Iowa State's defense?
I think Iowa State's secondary is going to end up being one of the best in the Big 12, just like last year when it's all said and done. But I will say I don't think it's as good as it was last year, at least heading into this season. Looking at it on paper, I don't think it's as good as last year. And Kansas State's wide receiver group, I think, is better than last year because other than Jace Brown, they were pretty subpar. They still found ways to make big plays against Iowa State last year against a better secondary with a worse wide receiver group. I think Kansas State can win those 50-50 balls with the updated size and Jared Bradley and Jared Tibbs, 6'3", 6'4" guys. And if you find a way to get Jace Brown one-on-one or broken coverage, again, like you did in multiple times last season, look out, because I think Jace Brown is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the country.
I think he is too. He just lives in the wrong Manhattan. That's all that is. Like literally, I'm not trying to be mean, but
no, I understand. If he was on the East Coast, I think he'd be getting a lot more hype.
Yeah, if he played for Penn State, they'd be talking about it. It's a different kind of deal. So my prediction is that Kansas State wins this game 31-24. I think they've got the key final piece is that Dylan Edwards will make a special play. Maybe in the second play of the game, it may be the second to last play of the game. But he has abilities that take away from what other coaches do. I've heard this in every sport that I've ever played, any announcer, any coach. Speed kills, and I have seen him run live. It is not normal. The way he runs out of a cut, off a stop and go, or anything else, you cannot prepare for that in practice. Either you got one of those or you don't, and he's a 4-3 guy. I think that he will be the deciding factor. The game will be pretty even overall, in my opinion. Rocco will probably have a couple of touchdown passes, etc. But I think Dylan Edwards will get it done. If you want to add to that, go ahead, Christian. If not, we'll wrap her up. But I got K-State coming out by 7.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to your prediction, actually. I got 31-27, a little closer because this game's always within one score, at least over the last 4 years. But I do think you're right. I mean, Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards have to be successful if they want to win against Iowa State and change the narrative that hasn't been around 3 of the last 4 years. So I'm all for it on that. 31-27 is my final prediction. I think the reason behind it, when it's all said and done, is Kansas State wins the rushing game and they win the turnover margin, something that they didn't do last season. And I think that's very important. Oh, and for the record, probably the most important thing on this show, Kubota L series, those are the best tractors in my opinion. I got 10 acres. That's the ones to go for.
Okay, there you go, man. I appreciate the insight there. That is definitely not my area, so I'll completely hand that to you. Thank you once again for coming in, Christian. Tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Lockdown Kansas State, anywhere you listen to YouTube audio, anywhere you listen. We're going to go live right after the game. So if you're watching Farmageddon, if you're watching it in Dublin, which you should, because college football is on and ready to roll, you can hop on over on YouTube and check us out live right after doing an instant reaction, talking about the game, talking about the Cats, and so much more.
Appreciate that, sir. Portal Podcast available wherever you get your podcasts 7 days a week, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and everywhere else. And of course, on YouTube. We will see you again soon.